Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Damian Fields. I am a tax professional with 12 years of experience. I'm currently pursuing an associate's degree of applied business and accounting and paralegal studies with the goal of becoming a CPA and a licensed attorney. The following video is for educational purposes and may not work for your tax situation. It is always best practice to consult a tax professional about your unique tax situation. In this video, I am going to discuss past due child support obligations and some options that you may have to avoid your portion of the tax refund being offset. A common question I receive from married couples where one spouse has had a child before the marriage is if one spouse is responsible for another spouse's past due child support obligations if they file jointly. The short answer to the question is no. Typically, you are not responsible for the past due child support obligations for a child that was conceived before your marriage. With that being said, there are tax implications if you file jointly and you don't address the past due child support obligation within your tax return. If your spouse has a past due child support obligation, they will receive an offset notice in the mail from the IRS stating to whom the obligation is to and for what amount. If you file your return jointly and you don't address the past due child support within your tax return, the IRS can offset your entire return for the support obligation even if you don't owe the debt yourself. The question then becomes, is there something that I can do? There are a few things that you can do to protect your portion of the refund from an offset. In this situation, you have two options and possibly a third option if you meet the eligibility criteria. Your first option is to file married filing separately, although there are many disadvantages to filing this way. There are two advantages of filing married filing separately. Because you are filing your return separately, your refund wouldn't be affected by the offset at all. And your return is typically processed within the normal 21-day IRS processing time. There are several disadvantages of married filing separately. First, if your spouse itemizes their deductions, you will also be required to itemize your deductions, which could drastically reduce your refund amount. Also, you will not be allowed to claim the earned income credit. The child tax credit is reduced to $1,000 per qualifying dependent compared to $2,000 per qualifying dependent if you were filing a joint return. Further, the child tax credit is phased out at the lower income level as compared to filing a joint tax return. Your second option is going to be to file Form 8379, the Injured Spouse Allocation Form, with your return. This is typically a great option if the injured spouse earns more income than the spouse that has the past due child support obligation, where that spouse may be providing 50% or more of the support for the household. Unlike filing separately, you will qualify for the earned income credit, the full child tax credit in most circumstances, and the child tax credit is phased out at the higher income level. Filing this form allows the injured spouse to allocate their share of the refund based on their income, credits, and tax withholdings. There are, however, still some disadvantages to filing this form with your return. For instance, your return could take 14 weeks or more to process, and you may also still see a slight reduction in your tax refund, not because of the offset itself, but because of the allocations. In my professional opinion, for most filers, this would be the best option. Although uncommon, there is a third option. It's not as simple as the first two options, and for this option, you must meet certain criteria. First, no, you cannot file single if you are legally married. For the simplicity of this situation, you will always have to file using one of the two married filings, which is either joint or separate. You may be eligible to file head of household if you meet the criteria. You do not have to be legally separated to qualify, but you must have lived apart from your spouse for more than 6 months and file a separate tax return. In addition to that, you have the normal head of household qualifications, which are you paid more than half of the household expenses, provided the main home for a qualifying dependent, and claim an exemption for that dependent. It is worth noting that you cannot both file head of household. If one spouse files head of household, the other spouse must file married filing separately, even if the other spouse has qualifying dependents. While this is an educational video and is intended to educate you on your options for a tax situation that may arise for a spouse that has a past due child support obligation, everyone's tax situation is unique and is different. It is always best practice to consult with a tax professional and seek advice based on your unique tax situations.